Hi everybody, and welcome to Traveling with Russell, and welcome to Moscow. Actually, I'm very close to the Moscow region where I am. Welcome to a new video. A little bit overcast today, so I thought I'd head indoors and show you an auto show with a little bit of different types of cars, buses, and vehicles. So let's go. I just thought I'd show you the outside of the building here. I have been here and made videos quite a lot. This is Crocus City Expo Center, where we're going to go to. Some dark clouds are looming. In the distance is Vegas Crocus City, which is a very large shopping center. And then this is the Expo Center. There is, I think, 16 halls for the whole place. But this is actually a little bit of a smaller, more niche expo, and there's just 4 halls to walk through. Perhaps a lot of people may remember from the news about 1.5 years ago, this was where the very terrible attack happened at the theater. They're actually removing the paneling now and starting to work on fixing that up. And this is where we want to go. Right here. It's actually a very huge place to come to. It has its own metro station, which was actually built by the same owner of this whole complex. It's the only one in the Moscow metro that they've done that. And it's called Mikhinino Metro Station. Basically, Crocus City Hall. There is actually a map of the different halls right here, and it's been called an auto cluster. Now, they do actually hold a few different ones in Moscow throughout the year. This one's called ComAuto Expo, Auto Bus Expo, and it focuses on a couple of main things. One is about buses and public transport, and then there is a hall with commercial vehicles, and then there is 2 very big halls with a lot of general automotive companies and a lot of domestic companies, a lot of companies from China who are trying to find a market here in Russia and the CIS countries. I am here in the afternoon, so you'll see a lot more people leaving than walking in. I actually came a little bit later today, had lunch first, and here we are. You can actually walk from the upstairs level straight over to the metro to get the train home, and you can also walk right into the shopping center as well. So it should be interesting. I'm not probably going to show the entire expo because there is a lot to cover. I'll just try and show some things that are perhaps interesting or more popular. This is the 2 back halls here, and you can see how many companies there are. I would estimate probably about 300 or more exhibitors, maybe as many as 500 between all of the 4 halls, because there's a lot of smaller stands inside. What I really did want to show was the buses, because I've previously done videos about them and they were very popular, and I think I need to show some more and perhaps some new models. I am very curious for anybody who is not in Russia about 3M, because they've got a stand here or a booth. Now, these stands and booths don't sell things. They're here to do business, exchange contacts, find new suppliers or vendors, and from what I understand is 3M is not in Russia. However, all of the things that we're used to seeing are definitely there. Now, my one question, and I'm curious if someone knows the answer, if you can put it in the comments, is what does 3M stand for? And I wonder if anybody knows it without looking it up and Googling it. Tell me what the 3 M's are. So actually in this part where I've walked in, to the bus section, they've got a lot of oil companies or suppliers of oils for, obviously, for automotive use, mechanical use. Also lots and lots of accessories and parts as well. So the majority of people that you're seeing here are coming to do what they call in Russia B2B, so business to business, and they're coming to perhaps make a new contact, find a new company that they might want to use for their business, or they might want to on-sell it. So there's a mixture of international companies that have come here and set something up, and also Russian companies who are already actively in the market. And something like this, where they're coming from overseas, they've got all of the different products, but the brands are usually generic, and you can arrange to make your own brand. So this is the bus part of the event. There is actually trucks as well. So there's quite a mixture of things here. They host conventions in Moscow almost every week. They stop briefly for summer and then they start again. So this is Maz, which is a Belarus company, and they've got some of their bigger trucks at the same time on display, which are just humongous things at the same time. And then there is a mixture of different domestic and Chinese companies that are showing the different buses. And there is obviously a very big market for these, both in Russia and then exporting them outside of Belarus or outside of Russia to other countries. And these are the long distance buses, not necessarily used for local routes. So there is some of the statistics here. And most people are interested in the size of the bus or the length of it, how many seats, and the features about the braking, size of the bus and the weight. It's pretty impressive to see them. Hopefully they'll be okay with me walking on inside. Let's go check it out briefly. I'm no bus expert. I think everybody knows my channel by now. I'm not getting into any detail. However, this is a very nice bus. Obviously it's brand new. It smells like it just came out of the factory. Very comfy looking chairs as well. And all the things you would expect from long distance buses. They even have the seat belts built into these as well, which is nice. Got the pull down tables. Like all the things that you want out of a bus. And then I'm fairly sure over here they can have a little cart where they can sell things and storage. And then down here is the bathroom. Yeah, they have a built-in bathroom, sink, mirror. It even tells you how to use it in case you forgot, which is quite interesting. There's another brand called Yutong. Now in Russia there is quite a mixture of domestic manufactured buses and then what I would call imported buses, where they're not made locally. And of course there's all sorts of different features and differences amongst them, you know, different electronic systems. And the Chinese bus versus the Belarus bus, does it feel any different? Does it look different? Здравствуйте. I don't know. I think there's a lot of similarities. I think the companies are competing always very closely to, you know, one-up each other with the features and things like that. This one is more, I imagine, a domestic bus. It doesn't have the bathroom and the refrigerator here for the food storage. However, everything else looks pretty similar. There's a brand here called Higa, and I was looking up the information on them because it's always interesting to understand a little bit, and it turns out that they actually supply and sell these in Australia. So if anybody watching has been on one of these buses, or if they've ever paid attention to which model that they were riding, it will be interesting to know if you've been in the KLQ 6126LYA. That's a bit of a mouthful of the description, but there's this one over here. Lots of people looking like they're buying buses, or hopefully buying the bus at some point. And then there's another one on the other side. Have a look at the storage underneath this big pass-through right here. So you can put all of the luggage inside. Anybody knows the Higa brand? Let me know, please. The logo looks awfully similar to a Hyundai. Now I know it's not, but it looks very, very similar. There is also some other companies that are a little bit smaller that are selling the more local or suburban vehicles. And I think perhaps the Ford brand is awfully recognizable. And then Iveco. So these are buses that you will see in Moscow and in Moscow region, in smaller towns. And then they've also got these different forms of luxury transport. So they're more designed around people who own them privately as luxury transport, or perhaps companies that use them as vehicles for hire, for airport transfers, things like that. The Maybach 7+1. It's definitely impressive. This gold color. Let's see if we can get a little bit closer and have a look inside. They've got almost like tiled floors, or at least covered flooring, lighting, is reverse seats. Very nice, really. And let's have a look at this other one. Wow, how much space do we have? And the chairs slide forward and back in case you need full-size TV screen there as well. This is pretty crazy. So I'm not sure how long this video will run for. I know lots of people do like these convention videos. I really enjoy coming to them at the same time and trying to find something that's different or unique and show it in videos. These are very normal weekly conventions that they hold in Russia. They've got all sorts of different niches that you can come to. I enjoy coming to these vehicle ones, truck and construction ones. They also hold here quite a lot of different food expos. which are also popular. I love that as well, of course. So it's just interesting to come here week after week and see how it changes and what different things that they've got available or for sale. I don't know if you can take a bus home. I don't think you can. You could definitely order one. There's a couple of different buses here by Belarus. Now, this is currently a Russian company. However, if anybody maybe knows back a few years ago, they were in partnership with Ford, and the Ford transit van, or whatever the word is, econovan, there's a lot of similarities with it. And they also have the four-wheel drives as well. So this bus ride here is quite similar to the one that I ride home quite often to my house. The smaller minibuses are very popular. Doesn't have any lights on, so it's a bit hard to see. However, I think there isn't a person in Russia that hasn't caught one of these smaller minibuses at some point in all of the years. And then they've got the long distance buses. So these are actually made over in Vladivostok, over in the far east of Russia. So they've got two different types of, I'm going to say, traditional buses, and then these mini buses as well. Be interesting to see their ute, what it looks like in person. Almost looks like a Nissan four-wheel drive, if you can maybe see the similarities. Have they got the lights on? Maybe not. Yeah, so it's a little bit dark. There is another company from Belarus right here called Avior, and they've got a very nice, they're calling it a tourist bus. And this is a, I guess, smaller version of a traditional bus. They've got a lot of fancy lights inside. Actually very nice in the cab here. And these smaller buses, it's about 30 seats, I guess. Nice and comfy. So these are in current use in Belarus, in Minsk, in different cities. And then they're trying to find somebody here in Russia who wants to buy them and use them mostly for tour companies or for local administrations to use as their domestic buses. Very nice Belarus company. I'm always trying to find the Russian and Belarus companies where I can. And of course, we know China is everywhere around the world. What do you think? I've made it over to the, what I think is really the main hall. There's actually two parts to it. And this has a lot of companies that are manufacturing and supplying parts to the greater auto industry. And there is hundreds of booths and counters that are doing something slightly different from each other, and both in terms of selling manufactured items or machinery for car manufacturing or car maintenance. And there is so many things here that you just wouldn't think in your head that you'd find the actual literal company. So for instance, where you get your tires checked and balanced, there's the company here well, there's about 10 companies that are selling the machines for wheel alignments and engine refurbishment. And it's really company after company that are engaged here doing this. Now, of course, they're not looking to sell everybody one of them, but they're looking for the niche shopper who is wanting specific products. Even just the tire fitting machines, multiple different models of them as you look around. It's a lot to take in. Fuel injectors. So there's entire stands with individual companies that are the manufacturers of that specific item, and then they're looking for either suppliers or buyers of products, even technical machinery. I don't even know what a lot of these things do. Different parts. It's really slowly gets out of my knowledge scope of what the things do. I think these are for testing fuel injectors. Oh, there we go. Rail injector testing. And they've got a guy doing the demonstration right there. There's really quite a lot going on as you walk around, and a lot to take in. Garage tool equipment. So where these companies come to these events, they're looking not necessarily to sell to the retail consumer, it's to sell to the larger wholesale buyer who will then on-sell it in perhaps a petrol station company or a car parts shop. And there's quite a lot of these as I walk around this section where they've got these smaller individual booths where there is people selling very specific individual items. So they've got here just fan belts, there is brake calipers. Over here, I'm not actually even sure. These different, I think, these little testers that they plug in the car for sensors. That's the word I'm looking for. As I'm filming from time to time, the different people at these booths call me over and want me to show what they're selling and perhaps promote their business. I mean, how many people need to buy clutch plates by the container load, or there is what do you call the thing for changing gear selectors, and everybody wants me to squeeze them into the video, but I'm just generally walking around and showing you this entire expo. As I'm walking around these different stands, there is such a widespread amount of different companies doing something different. The one over here has headlight bulbs and lamps, and then there's the one company here called Rock, and they focus on the chairs for cars, and they manufacture the chairs and the internal components of the chairs, so things like the heating and the different pumps that you see right here, and they produce and supply them to different car companies. And of course they're here trying to find some avenues to sell them into the Russian market. You know, I would never think that there is a specific company that's making only the chairs and then supplying them to the car manufacturers. I think we always think in our mind when we're buying a car that the car manufacturer makes the whole car. But yet, when you see a company there that's making only the seats for the car and then selling them by the thousands to the individual manufacturers, there is a company in China that makes every individual part of a vehicle and is able to then on-sell them to other companies. This is something very interesting, and I will actually have a second video on the channel, so you might be watching this before or after this video. I was yesterday at this car dealership called Moscow Tian, and it's a very, very large car dealership that has somewhere close to 6,000 cars available, and a good majority of them are Chinese manufactured cars or Western brands made in China and then brought to Russia or wherever they're sending the cars to. And they've got a couple of models on display here, obviously very Chinese models. Denza N9, which looks, I'm going to say, like a Range Rover Sport. And then they've got this model of Xiaomi. Now, if I'm saying it wrong, please correct me. And this is the YU7 Max. And this is one of the absolute latest models of Chinese car. I'm not sure where you can see this car outside of Russia or China, so if anybody knows, please let me know if you've got them in your country. It's got the screen there, heads-up display. And this is one of the fastest cars coming out of China right now. Brembo brakes. 0 to 100 in 3.2 seconds, I think it is. Doesn't come with the lady. So if you're buying the car, it's just what you see. As she's getting some photos taken. But what do you think? Now, I'm sure model people know the model of the mobile phone, and I think this car by far attracts the most amount of people. Not as many people want to see the Denza, but I will have another video, or I will link it in this video, to watch that walk around of the dealership, because there's a lot of interesting cars to show. And this Expo itself is, of course, about the auto industry, but it's more about the business to business of the parts and the equipment for fixing cars, building cars, manufacturing cars. So there is only a few different cars physically here, of course, buses, trucks and things like that. And I am hoping to get back there again to make another video because of the fact it was so interesting to see. Just don't put your dog or kids in the car. That's the most important thing. There is actually a couple of quite unique cars over here. Now, from what I understand, this is a company that does the interior of cars. So the cars themselves aren't for sale, but these are actually Lada Niva cars that have been heavily modified to look like Barabbas. Just have a look at the interior of the car right there. And this is a Lada Niva. Got speakers, these very comfy chairs in the back. And there's even TV screen I think PlayStation as well. This is very cool. And they've got one more on this side, which is also a Lada Niva, but it's meant to look like G-Wagon, or I think G-Wagon. I'm not sure. Again, TV and speakers in the back. They've got roof rails, side skirts, crazy big wheels as well. And then the interior here is, I think, meant to look like Mansouri. It's even got a Mercedes steering wheel as well. But this is very, very cool. How many people perhaps own one of these in Russia? As I keep walking around, the amount of companies, and I'm going to say particularly Chinese companies, just seems to never end. Now, this expo was set up specifically for this topic of the auto cluster and companies coming together that are sharing the same niche and same industry. And when I think of Australia with 20 or 30 million people, you just don't have the population that would, you know, make this sort of event successful, because you just don't have the amount of buyers of the products. There's companies here with the wraps for cars. You know, we just don't have enough of a auto industry that it warrants having hundreds of individual companies, an entire company just for headlights, another one for PPF protection for your car, windscreen wipers. So you're looking at specific companies that make incredibly specific car parts. I mean, it's not a garage who's coming to buy 3 or 4 of them. These are the factories that are making tens of thousands of them. And, you know, their goal is to find a market. All the different wraps for cars again. So these are the manufacturers, whereas where you might live and you're buying a roll of it to wrap your car, you're buying it from a stockist who's bought it from one of these companies. And it's just so interesting just how big, or perhaps how small, we feel in the world when you're at one of these events and there is a guy wanting to sell you 15,000 headlight bulbs versus just going to your corner shop and buying one of them. It's a big event. I mean, I'm going to say this is considered quite small for Moscow. The biggest one that they hold yearly is called Mezhdunarodnaya Expo, and I've done different videos there as well. So this one is unique for a couple of different main topics. And just the amount of businesses actually even selling the same products. So you've got 20 or 30 engine oil manufacturers, 20 battery manufacturers, endless Chinese companies selling pretty much any part off a vehicle you can possibly think of. Going back a few months ago, I came here to Crocus City to a construction expo, and I'm not sure, but I think this might be the same company that's selling Fiat vehicles, and particularly commercial vehicles or work vans. And this modern looking Fiat Doblo, I'm pretty sure I remember that this was at that expo, and then they're here again. These refrigerated minivans. It looks like they've got also some Renault models as well. So I'm almost certain this is the same company that I saw, and they were actually outside at the time. So over here they've got all the different commercial vehicles and different models of vans and trucks that can be used in some kind of commercial use. Not as many people over here. There is an interesting one that they've got here, which is set up, or at least temporarily set up, as an ambulance, and this is actually a Volkswagen. So on the roads in Russia, you'll generally see them in different colors and different formats. And check this out. Now, I'm not in the market for an ambulance. However, there's companies that are doing this fit out and then, of course, then selling them to governments, the administrations. Okay, they've got the seat turned up here to see all the workings inside, but pretty cool. Really interesting. The ambulance that I just showed, and then next to it here is a Mercedes Sprinter van, which is configured as a tourist van or minibus. And the lady that's involved with this company was talking to me and explaining about what they're doing. So essentially they're importing the vehicles like you see here, Mercedes and the ambulance Volkswagen, and then they're modifying them for domestic use. So things like adding the seats and all of the different features inside. The ambulances are made based on the base model of Volkswagen and then modified into different categories of ambulance. And then depending on the needs or the customer or client that buys them, they are manufacturing the full interior of the actual vehicle itself, and then all of the dashboard and all of the emergency systems, and then selling them domestically, regardless of the fact that it's a Volkswagen vehicle that's imported to Russia and then sold as an ambulance as you see it. There's a really cool Mercedes here, and I actually saw this a little bit earlier. I came for a bit of a walk around with a friend, and he's now since gone home. And have a look at the interior, and the first thing that sprung to mind was the Tiffany finish, and this is exactly what the gentleman was explaining. So very similar to the ambulance, these companies are modifying the base models of the vehicle for local use. So these will either get sold as private vehicles for people who want luxury transport, or to companies that are similar to taxis or businesses that make trips for people. So if you want airport transfers, or if you want to go somewhere, for instance in Moscow, you would call a company and hire that kind of vehicle. And how cool is that finish with the Tiffany inside? There's actually a few different models here. Is this the Cadillac, or is that just the grille, perhaps? Actually, it's all locked up, so we can't see up close. There's quite a few different models. V300D right there. And then there's the Bus Motors Company. Have a look. It's got the famous umbrellas like Rolls-Royce. And the seats and this interior finish. I think maybe television as well. So there is quite a lot of different companies that are in this luxury transport sector. based on all the models they've got on show here. There's another one of these Mercedes vans, and I just noticed it as I walked around and I had to come back because have a look at this interior now. It's unfortunately very dark, but it's got the starry roof, these two like super comfy, almost like business class chairs, and it's also got television over here. It's leather, Alcantara finish. So the companies, they're buying the base model vehicle, and then they're in the business of fitting out the vehicles, and then of course selling them as finished models. But have I ever seen this in Australia? I don't think I have. Maybe I've driven past something and would never think what's inside. As I come almost to the end of the video, I think I've got to finish off showing a little bit of Russian technology or a Russian brand. And here is Lada and the Largus Cub, which is their little minivan that they've got. There's actually a few different types, so they've got the different cabs on the back. Granta Prima. So it's essentially the classic sedan car, but they've put the freezer box on the back. Is that what they call them? Very cool. Largus Prima. So we've finally found a little bit of Russian transportation amongst all of the imported products and imported vehicles. As I head on out of the Transport and Auto Expo, I'm still not sure exactly what to call it. It actually has 3 different names, and different expos have combined together that share, similar interests and industries. I really hope you've enjoyed the video, and to see some of the different types of buses, commercial transport, parts, Chinese cars, and all sorts of different things. And for me, I find it very interesting. I was fortunate today, I met up with a friend who was here also. So we actually had lunch together and went for a walk around and talk about the different things that I showed you in the video. If you like these kind of videos, please let me know in the comments. Give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel and you've made it to the end, let me know. Excuse me. I'm not going to do take 2s. I'm around about 2 minutes from the metro station, and I make my videos as simple as I can and not edit things and change things. If you want to follow my Telegram channel, it is right here. And then if you want to watch another video on the channel, you can click this link. It's popping up right now. And you can keep traveling with Russell. Okay, everybody, I'm off on another adventure. Bye.